All right, so today we are going to talk about a new topic, and this is the process of branding. So it's a long topic, so we're going to take it in small chunks, and today is part one. Okay, wait lang po. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about the importance of having a branding strategy. So it's in three words. This sums up the reason why it's important. Planning is everything. So what does this mean? It's it's possible for any advertising agency to come up with a really cool commercial or really cool advertising. So what will distinguish one ad campaign from the rest of the pack is, was there a lot of careful thought that was put into the planning? Okay, so kung pagandahan lang ng commercial, almost every ad agency, they have the capabilities of creating a really eye-catching ad. But the question is, did they put a lot of thought or careful thinking into the process? So what do they have to think about? First, of course, the strengths and the weaknesses. And later on, we're going to talk about how to do that. But I'm sure you've already heard of a SWOT analysis. So that's what we're talking about with regards to the second item. Okay. And then another reason why planning is everything is that things change. So what does this mean? A company must take stock of the environment because the environment is constantly changing, and also the thoughts of the consumers. What do they think about the product or the brand? That also changes with time. Okay, so it's important to find out what the situation is so that we're not going to end up surprised or the client doesn't end up surprised later. So we have to what we call anticipate the changes instead of waiting to be surprised. Okay, and Sarlene has joined us. Good afternoon, Sarlene.
Hi, sir.
All right, so we are still talking about strategy, particularly branding strategy. So what is a strategy? In the simple definition, it says it's a detailed plan. And what are the details in this plan? So first, you have overall objectives. What does the client want to achieve? Okay, based upon realistic assessment of the environment. So we have to ask ourselves what the client wants. Is it really achievable based on our assessment of the environment? Okay. And of course, how do we get there? So that's what we call the general approach. So that's the definition of a strategy. It's a plan as to what to do. Okay, so now we go to the meat of the topic, which is of the lesson, which is the topic branding. So what is branding? Previously, we talked about positioning, and branding is related to positioning. So, Mark, could you read, please? What is branding? The first item.
a, a way to distinguish your product or service from others using a trademark name or logo.
Okay, so logo, for example, the golden arches, automatically we think of McDonald's, right? And then a trademark name, um, any name of a product, the brand. So whatever the brand is or what the logo looks like, we automatically have some kind of association to those ideas. We have feelings or towards these trademarks or logos, and we already have preconceptions about these trademarks or logos, especially if these are for products or services that have been around for a long time. So, how did branding originate? What is the history of branding? Sarlene, could you read the next item, please?
Brands have been around for centuries. Early craftsmen put their marks on their wares to identify who made them, and artists have been long signed their artwork.
Okay. So brands have been around for a long time. I'm going to show you a video. This is from Sell and Spin, and maybe you've seen it already, maybe not. So this could be just a review. But yeah, in the past, people would put their marks on whatever they were selling. Also, artists, like if you make a painting or if you do any artwork, you sign your name on that artwork. So let's look at the video from Sell and Spin, a segment of Sell and Spin.
Patent medicines. Often, businesses had national magazines in which to advertise their products and a national railroad system to distribute them. But they still needed some way to make their product stand out, to make their product more desirable than all the others. The solution? Branding.
When you were selling biscuits, for instance, in the 19th century, you would sell the biscuit in a barrel. On the barrel, you would burn the address of where the biscuits came from. The history of advertising is the transformation of that burned brand from the package to the product. So that when you pick up an Oreo cookie, for instance, you can actually hold it and look at the Oreo brand literally on the cookie.
The idea is not so much to attract individuals to try it so much as to make them into selective customers who say, I want that particular pack of cigarettes or that particular bottle of beer or that particular bar of soap.
Okay. So were you able to hear the sound from the video?
Yes, sir.
You were good. Okay. All right. Because I just wanted to be sure. So let's talk about that. What was the example? What were the examples of products where the brand was either stamped on it or burned into the packaging? What was the first one? The one in the barrel?
Ano ba yun? Yung alak.
Biscuit.
Yung alak nga. Kalimutan
Alak
ko
ba
nga.
yun? Let's
Biscuit.
biscuit
Hindi, yung
daw.
biscuit yung parang ginaya na lang ng biscuit eh. Yung ginawa doon sa barrel.
Alin.
Okay, so after the class, you can watch the video again to check if your answers were correct. So I just wanted to show you a video because this clearly shows us what we were discussing in the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so they put their marks on their wares like you saw in the video, and also eventually like the Oreo cookie, it wasn't just on the packaging. Now the brand was literally on the product itself. Okay, and the third item is that branding has expanded well beyond just differentiation through marks and logos. So that day, when you say branding, it's just, is there a trademark or is there a logo? But now branding goes beyond that. Branding in the sense of marketing and advertising means we communicate meaning through certain attributes. What are these possible attributes? Accountability, consistency, and also personality traits that the names have become associated with. So what does this mean? So let's look at the next slide. Okay. So consumers are willing to pay a premium or a high price to buy a product if that product carries a respected brand name. So given a choice between a long-established and reputable brand and a new unknown brand, most people would go for the brand that has already developed a good reputation. We're not saying it's impossible for an unknown brand to eventually develop its own audience or constituencies, but generally people prefer something known or something respected. Okay, so this next item, branding strategy creates a clear picture of the values your product or service represents. For example, Milo and Ovaltine. So in terms of branding, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me. Um, Milo has a more developed brand, I think, because whenever you think of Milo, you think of athletics. Yes, someone wants to contribute to the discussion? Go ahead.
Ayun nga, sir. Yung ano, parang ang naging tatak nila yung mga athletes.
Correct.
Yan.
Sino latest endorser ng Milo?
He's sa gymnastics, si, ano
Opo,
yun?
yung gwapo. Sino yun?
Si Yulo yun eh.
Yulo,
Carlos
Kumakapangalan.
Yulo.
Carlos.
yun.
Michael.
Michael Yulo.
Skating pala yun.
Okay. So malinaw na talagang mas developed yung brand ng Milo. Okay. The Ovaltine, it's trying to target kids. Remember they had the commercial, the Ovaltinis commercial. It was a cartoon. So, but generally, Milo tends to stand out more compared to Ovaltine. Okay. So similarly, in the last item, it says people don't buy things because of what things do. They buy things because of what they mean. Okay, it's an interesting thought. But when you think back to the age of MP3 players, generally people wanted, if they had the money, they would go for the iPod, okay, because it's an Apple product. And when a product carries the Apple branding, it automatically has like a reputation attached to it. So people don't buy things because of what they do. They buy things because of what they mean. Okay, and Dawn has joined us. Good afternoon, Dawn. Okay, so let's proceed to branding as a barrier. Okay, so solid branding strategy creates a barrier to entry. That's the expression they use in the book, a barrier to entry. What does it mean? So it prevents competitors from stealing away loyal consumers. Or as it says here, competitors will find it difficult to persuade loyal consumers to abandon their favorite product for a newcomer. So most of us, depending on the product, we tend to be loyal to a particular brand, unless at some point the brand disappoints us for one reason or another. So it's very difficult for a new product to show up on the market and steal away or persuade, customers who already have developed brand loyalty. Okay, so what are the characteristics of a solid branding strategy? So first is they are accountable to the consumer. So if a brand performs poorly, for example, what's given in the book, Acne shoe. So if the shoe, for whatever reason, disappoints the buyer, then most likely the next time the person has a need to buy a shoe or shoes, obviously dalawang sapatos, not just one, probably they won't go with a brand that disappointed them. In contrast, if they have a good experience with the product, then not only will they buy that same brand of shoes again, they might consider also buying other products in that line of products that carries the same brand. So yun yung maganda sa brand, especially if it has a product line, different kinds of products. If the buyer is impressed with buying one particular product, they might consider also purchasing the other products that are available under the brand. And therefore, it simplifies decision-making for customers. Once they like a particular brand, they're going to stick with it and they might explore the rest of the product line. So they don't have to waste a lot of time searching Lazada or Shopee. Once there's a store, a brand that gave you a good shopping experience, then there's a big chance you'll keep coming back to the same brand over and over again. All right, so that's accountability.